3 or 4 folks participating virtually. We do stream every one of our meetings. We love having you here, but you don't have to come in to see what we're doing. You can tune in anytime. We also record our meetings, so they're always available shortly after the meeting if you want to relive the experience. All right, colleagues, I hope everyone's had a chance to take a look at the agenda proposed for today's meeting. Without exception, we will approve today's agenda. And hearing none, that agenda is approved. Thank you. Next up is a review of our minutes from our last meeting, the beginning of the month. I hope everyone's had a chance to take a look at those. If no one has any objection, we will approve the minutes from our meeting earlier in April.
I still want to know the name of the dog.
Okay, and we're going to need to.
Name of the dog.
No, there was that little element in the minutes about the dog running around. And it's,
An elephant in the minutes.
Just so you know, AK puts little blurbs in the minutes that if you don't read the minutes, you don't get the joke, so she knows whether you've read the minutes or not.
we are tested regularly by staff.
They do get pulled out before we vote on them, so.
Yeah, they do. They do get pulled out.
All right, if no one has any objections, we'll approve those minutes.
Is this the original, is this the copy you need us to sign?
Yes.
Okay.
And hearing no objection, those minutes are approved. The third item on today's agenda is office updates. It's been a few weeks. What's new?
It has been, thank you. This morning, we spent the whole morning doing a team building exercise, and we had to reduce our budget in that area, so we worked with the county to do it in-house. The HR department and Parks and Rec helped us, and they did a fantastic job. So we kind of centered it around the DISC assessment that we use, which is a personality assessment that's tuned to the work environment that has been really useful to our office. And it was fantastic. And Parks and Rec took us on a pontoon ride, and we saw a bald eagle. So it was a very successful.
Was that the
Right.
big pontoon boats they're using?
They have one regular size pontoon.
Okay.
Yep. The 35 Woodfin move is happening on this Thursday. You might see some people walking around tagging things. They're doing that today. We're all packed up, and that is moving forward. We have done county-led advertising through the county's press releases, and we've also paid for additional radio ads and things like that to get out the word. So hopefully that transition will be as smooth as possible. Last week we had several of our staff members go to the Election Center workshop in Pittsburgh on scholarship, which was fantastic. It was completely paid for. And that works towards their SARA certification, which is the national certification. And they had a great time there, and there were also some other North Carolina people there. So that was success, and it was really great to have so many on scholarship. It was six that went on scholarship. We are working with Strategy and Innovation on a customer service survey for 35 Woodfin. We're going to try to make it as simple as possible, focusing on the customer's experience and trying to make it as easy to fill out as possible. And we haven't formulated it completely, but the idea is maybe 3 questions, possibly an open-ended section, an electronic version and a paper version, and then the option to have us contact them if they would like that. So we're working on that, and then we're also trying to figure out the basic data that we want to collect internally. The next, which I think most of you are up to date on, but it's good to mention in board meetings is the 382, what's happening there. So it was ruled unconstitutional for a little bit, and then it went to U.S. Court of Appeals. They put a stay on it, which means that the law is in effect until they rule. But that should be very quick, because May 1st is the day that they would make the appointments, which that's this Thursday. So I expect that we're going to hear something tomorrow on that, but we'll see. In line with appointments, we are looking forward into the future and making plans for the next board term. And we have reserved the courtroom for swearing in. So we're making progress on that and developing the board orientation, which I think most of you participated in. Yes, and was very useful. So we're looking forward to doing that again. The Griffin challenges, those were reduced just to Uocava for Buncombe County, and we're still awaiting guidance on those. Marianne, you had asked a question about, well, you asked two questions that are related to this. So you asked whether SOSA and OVERD, which is what poll workers use, captures driver's licenses and Social Securities. And the answer to that is not at the polling location. It's there, but it's a grayed out field, unless they're doing a provisional or they're doing a same-day registration.
Okay,
And
I'm
then-
confused. If they're doing a provisional, it's available,
Yes,
or same-day registration, it's available.
correct.
So if you update someone's record, would it be available?
No. And then the other question was about proactively contacting any of the voters on the list, and the state's guidelines is to not do that. Of course, if voters call and ask and want to update, we absolutely do that.
What does proactively mean? I'm a little confused there.
Doing something like calling all of them or sending a letter to all of them.
Oh, from our office.
From
Got
our
it.
office, yes, correct.
So they would have to initiate that.
Yes, correct.
So if that has been done in any other counties, then that's when their 30 days started?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Because what I was reading was if we do send a letter out, then when they receive it, that starts the 30 days that they have to update their record.
I can't definitively say, but I would guess that it would be when the state board tells all of us on the same form to send it, contact all of the voters, that's when it would start.
Oh, this was from State Board. That was their reasoning for not wanting us to send it out. It's as soon as they're notified, they could end up in a legal situation where they've been notified they only had 30 days from that date. So,
We have not sent out any notice.
okay.
And then the last thing is we are holding a few trainings, or we have held a few trainings. One is Nate started doing a treasury training. So that's something that we have added to our portfolio, treasurer training. And Karen has done precinct chair training. So we're on a roll with our trainings. And then there was some confusion. I can't remember whether I announced that we won 2 Cleary Awards.
No,
Yes.
That has all occurred since our last
That's
meeting.
exactly right.
Yes. Yeah, I remember we were celebrating, but
Yeah.
so we submitted 2 submissions for Cleary Awards.
Only 2? Why only 2?
Why only 2?
Because you can only win 2, right?
Yes, correct. So we submitted in the communications category for the NC Together video that we did at the beginning of the year. And then we also submitted under the new category for contingent planning and got that one too. It was very exciting. The state board also was awarded one in that same contingency planning category, and there were several other North Carolina counties, so we were well represented.
Prominently Currituck County, which had the able assistance of Buncombe County Election Services staff. They won the award for their I Voted sticker. And I think they pretty much used a Buncombe template on that one.
Yes, we helped them get that they were really excited to get that program up and going, and so I'm really happy that they got some recognition for theirs too.
And it's got it's a beautiful sticker. It's got the profile of the state. It's got a lighthouse. It's got the white pony, which reminds me of Ocracoke. There's a motel on Ocracoke, the White Pony. That's the pony they used. It's a cool little sticker.
Do we have time just to give us 2 minutes or 2 sentences of what the Cleary Award is for our audience?
Yes, actually, I'm sure that I could look.
Yeah, they are awarded by the United States Election Assistance Commission, which is a fairly new entity. It was developed after the 2020 election to help the states address election issues, election operations more effectively. And every year they recognize different entities for doing good work, promoting good, clean, smooth elections. But anyway, that's the EAC, the Election Assistance Commission.
Yep, and exactly, they give these awards every year. You can go on the website and see them all, so you can see past good projects and steal from those. And so it's a good place that kind of holds projects that have been successful in the past too.
The only problem I had with their release is that it didn't have a link to any of the NC Together videos.
Oh, that would have been good.
But if you get your hands on the press release that the state sent out early last year, there's links to all 3.
Yep.
And on our website.
And on our website too, you got it. And you can find them on the state website, but you got to dig a little bit at this point. Thank you. Anyone have any questions, comments? Director Duncan, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I did want to mention one thing. There was a member of the community who was a regular here for a good long time. Her name was Phoebe Watson, and she passed away recently. And we so value people coming to our meetings. You have no idea. And when we lose one, that hurts, especially someone who was so dedicated like Phoebe. But just please keep on coming. Next up on the agenda is election facilities presentation and discussion. I will hand this over to Director Duncan. I will give everybody a heads up that I don't know how long this is going to last, but in 59 minutes, if this meeting is ongoing, you will see a cloud of dust here as I depart. Stay as long as everybody needs to, but I've got a commitment that I just can't miss, and I got to be there by 5. And so, Director Duncan, let's proceed.
Thank you. So the board requested an update and a chance to discuss the future move for the warehouse specifically. And so Robert Brown is here. He's going to be presenting. He's got a PowerPoint for us. I think Devin's getting that ready right now. And then Mike Mace and Tim Love are also here. So we have good representation. Robert will give presentation, and I'll support him. We've done a lot of communication lately. And so I have a few documents that I can show you too, if that's needed, and we can answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. So you referred to this as the warehouse, and we're calling it a warehouse, not a storage facility, correct?
For us, it's a warehouse.
Okay. For the county, it shall be a warehouse. Thank you. Proceed. Thank you.
I appreciate you having me here. Again, I'm Robert Brown. I'm an architect, and I work with General Services as a project manager. This is one of the projects in which I'm managing. It's Advanced Planning Storage Facility Update. And what I want to talk to you about is the storage facility, the project overview, the elections areas, allocations, advanced planning status, next steps, and then address any of your questions. So the overview of the project, the purpose of the storage facility is to consolidate county storage. We're located in multiple locations, so consolidation. Relocate storage and operations from building areas designated for affordable housing. The two that come to mind, and it's not on the screen, is 50 Cox, this is Elections Building, and 52 Cox, which is ID Bureau, for an upcoming affordable housing that's going to be placed right on top of that. The advanced planning for this process kicked off February 29th of '24. 45 county departments have been interviewed, sometimes multiple times. 26 of the departments in the county require storage or have storage needs or operational needs. 19 departments do not have any storage additional needs from what they currently have inside their own location. Elections are currently the largest area allocation of square footage planned in the future facility. In draft form, the total building is currently planned for about 90,000 to 100,000 square feet. And that's depending on the use of high density storage, because high density, of course, shrinks the size of your facility down. I want to kind of say something with regard to those numbers, though. In advanced planning, you should just say draft, because it is the very beginning of collection of information, development into an area allocation. As you go through the design process, in which I'll explain that a little bit more as well, the process in itself is a refinement of what you determine in the beginning. You know, how much area can we use high density in? How much can we not use it in? So, you know, that equation gets refined. So the area that we might have there in lieu of 90,000 might turn out to be a 70,000 square foot facility needed. So it to be seen, in a sense, through the development. I want to make sure we understood that. All right, to explain a little bit about the elections area allocations. Current areas for like operations, storage and training, meaning what we're using today, we utilize 21,981 square feet. At 50 Cox, it's 10,621 square feet. At Valley Street, third floor, it's 1,960 square feet. At Valley Street, fifth floor, it's 5,300 square feet, basically the entire floor. The 59 Woodfin, those functions are not in this study, because those are actually going to 35. So when I address the locations, that's why you only see those on the slide. Advanced planning draft building area allocation currently for elections is 31,467 square feet. Full-time storage and operations is 27,212. And then a election prioritized training and multi-purpose area of 4,255 square feet. And what I mean by prioritized is that during the training season, during the election season, elections have basic ownership of that space. It's dedicated to them. Post that time period, or in between those time periods, any department in Buncombe County can reserve that space currently in the plan. So to explain the 10,000 square foot increase from what we had to where we are in planning, area increase intended to resolve unmet existing operational needs and space inadequacies, training space versatility, and 10 years of operational growth and storage increase projections. And a lot of that actually are based on population growth projections as well. It's not a perfect science, but you kind of have to go to that to see what you have to expect and how many people you have to have as volunteers to come into this facility during the season. How many more ballots do you have to prepare? All that kind of extracts into and what we think the area requirement is over the next 10 years. And obviously you don't build it in 10 years, you have to build it now, planning for the 10 years in a sense, right? Advanced planning for the parking allocation request, or what we are looking at relative to how many spaces we'll need, is 80 to 100 standard spaces, which would include area for box truck and van parking. 80 is kind of the training number. 100 is voter night, when all the ballots have to come in. So kind of a big flow of vehicles, but it's also post 7:30 on that 100 space. The 80 can be at any time in the day. You'll need loading docks, you'll need supply pickup and drop-off areas. The entire facility will be classified as secure. Within that facility, elections area will be constructed as high security. So I can't, without a guide, I can't get in with my badge. I can get into the facility because we'll have a space in the facility. But from within that, I won't be able to go into elections. Another department of the same secure significance will be some of the sheriffs, the evidence that are also in the facility as well. So they kind of have, those are the high security areas. The entire building, though, will be surrounded by cameras, and you'll have to have the authority to go in. Can't just pop in. So that's important. A lot of the things we have now are a lot less secure relative to our storage and the facilities that you know, people come in and drop things off that they shouldn't be. They need to go through folks, let them know who they are, what it is, and then get it cataloged. So that's part of what this facility will do. So let's talk about the advanced planning status. CPL have completed all planned advanced planning departmental meetings, approximately 70 plus meetings to date, numerous infill departmental storage area reviews, and that includes elections. The meetings we've had to date, and I just want to compliment Corrine and Nagy and her whole group. They've been proactively engaging general services and the design team since 23, developing information to try to kind of construct the whole picture. And it's a relative to other departments, it's a voluminous amount of information. It's very good information. I wanted to make sure you were aware of their proactive attitude towards helping this be the best it can be. We had a pre-meeting 2/8/23 with General Services, 2/15/23 with General Services. We had the kickoff meeting 2/29/24, 3/25/24. They met with the design team and myself. 11/18/24. They also met again for additional informational exchange with the CPL. On 11/20, CPL, with assistance of Nagy, went to tour.
I think they don't know what CPL is.
That's the design team. I'm sorry. CPL is the selected design team, who's managing the advanced plan. I apologize. And as recently as 4/7/25, we had a really great, or in my opinion, it was a really great meeting. Which Mike and I were there with her entire team, and they went through every line of information, either confirming it or asking questions for us to get additional information on. And I felt it was a really productive meeting, and that was our last meeting. We have gotten some additional information from Corrine since then to kind of help close the question marks there, which has been forwarded to the design team. Advanced planning current comments received from election staff 4/22, which is the most recent information, which that has been integrated into the project. So from 23 to just now, they've been actively helping us develop the picture. So let's talk about the next steps. All right, so I have to complete, or we have to complete the remaining advanced planning, which will end up being a building schematic layout, kind of what would the floor plan, where everybody will lie on this. It'll be multiple levels, 2 to 3 levels of a facility. A schematic site plan, in other words, where are we? Where are we in the site? Where are the roads? Where's the parking? Where is elections drop off and pick up area, things of that nature. Kind of a massing schematic so that you can see kind of the scale of this facility if you were looking at it on site. It won't be a detailed elevation because at this point you're really not looking in design. That's the next stage that we go to. This is how much area will this building be? How big will it be? We'll have some geotechnical soil testing that doesn't really affect anything with regard to what we come out with an answer. It's more future casting for the next stage. Go ahead and do it now so that we can hit the ground running. And then get kind of a preliminary cost estimate, right? So we then confirm those costs. You get this information, you have to vet it. You have to pick it apart a little bit. You have to scrutinize it to make sure that what you're looking at hits today's current market, as well as kind of forecast what the situation will be when we go into construction. Forecasting that to understand the budget that you've got to ask. We will have to go and request for approval to proceed with the design, and that's at the management level and also the Board of Commissioners level typically, because you begin to spend a lot of money at this point after that forward, right? And that's kind of saying, yeah, we're on board with a budget this size for a facility this size at this location. After that, then design fees, and we start to get that contracted out. We do have the fees for design allocated. They're already budgeted. But the facility overall is not at this juncture. So if they approve for me to manage this forward, then we'll begin the formal design phases, in which is SD, schematic design, DD, design development, and CDs, construction documents. There are also, the next phase on that is bidding and negotiation, and then you have construction, right? You have 5 phases. And it was easy for me to learn that because I had 5 fingers on the hand that I wasn't holding a piece of paper, so I was good with that. Let's talk a little bit about that. Schematic design, that is when you're engaging each department specifically, not only with the advanced planning, but also with how this space functions. How, where does this copier have to be in relationship to where this paper is, in relationship to where these work areas are, in relationship to the training area. You get a lot more into that detail of information. Laying out your specific space and the way it has to function, okay?
And we're very excited to be, at this early of a stage, have that identified as something that we are going to engage in.
Absolutely, and the truth is, this is the time that you really have to. The more they're able to input in this very front end, the much larger the success rate will be at the end. So I'm excited that they are ready. Once we get that schematic design kind of for all the departments in this facility all kind of put together, we go back through it and we present it, right, for all the departments to see if we're kind of hitting the mark, right? And when they give their comments to us, then we move into design development. And in design development, you are kind of where they've said you haven't hit the mark, you listen to how to hit the mark or what it takes to hit the mark, and you move and develop that, right? And you're also developing the finishes and the aesthetic of the building. So it's making sure the functionality of the building is meeting their needs, transitioning it from schematic design into the development phase of it, and then really kind of how does this building look? What are the materials of this building? What are the systems of this building? What are the security on this building? You develop it. It's exactly what it says, design development. Usually about 50% of design development, you start to have another recontact meeting to kind of say this is what we heard and this is where we're going with it. And when I say that, it's departments all the way up to management, every level. And then at about 100%, we go back through it and do that same communication and kind of get comments on it. And that's sort of that's when it's open season. From schematic design to the end of design development, it's open season. When you go into CDs, you can make changes, but every change you make then becomes expensive, real expensive, because that's when the designers and all of their engineers are engaged in actually making all this conceptual stuff of real building. You're drawing working drawings, and everything that you change. If I change that wall, then all of a sudden the ceilings have to be redrawn. The HVAC system has to be recalculated. The switches that were on that, the pathways, the conduit, all that, right? So we think of all of the effort to get it right in schematic design, design development, and in CDs is the architect and engineers getting it right for bid day. All right, that's when I get hypercritical, is in my review of the documents, making sure I don't see errors, quality control. Because everything that if they make an error, and I say this respectfully because I'm a practicing architect, if they make an error, it costs a lot of money, right? So it's important to kind of find those errors on paper before it becomes 3D and after a bid day. So that's sort of what that side of it is. Then we bid, and we keep all the fingers, all the toes crossed that we're going to come in on budget. We typically also set up alternates and ways of value engineering methods that if we don't come in on budget, because the bid market it's mysterious quite often, so that we can accept reductions or not put ads that we had in place, right, to try to get in budget and then be able to move forward. All that being said, we contract, we get everybody's approval that has an authority and say so with the contract, predominantly the Board of Commissioners, and then we start construction. And then for a good while, you don't see me much other than to say, here's progress, or we try to get a camera that you can log in and watch the construction, that you can actually see the progress that's being made on site, because now it's me out on the job site with a hard hat, and when we get closer to move-in date and opening date and things of that nature, that's when we would be able to entertain a job site meeting. So, any questions?
Right. Thank you, Mr. Brown. It's a lot of information. Colleagues?
Related kind of sort of question. What's going to happen to the Allport building? Does it go away, or does it get repurposed, or what?
So Allport building, or at least a portion of the Allport building, will probably be utilized for, let me start over. IT functionally utilizes a lot of Allport right now. They will continue to use it, just as they do now. The one area that is being looked at, not locked in, I am not an authority here with regard to this, But one thing that is being looked at is for a portion of the lower floor to go to the ID Bureau, because they're losing their facility also. That's all I know. At this juncture, I can't tell you what the future plans. I know there's a large amount of things in this building that need work, but I don't know. That's more of a leadership.
I'm just curious. I mean, it's like a big old fort. Yeah,
It's a classic.
it is. And I would assume getting rid of it would be kind of tedious.
I love that elevator.
I'm not, I can't actually address that, I'm sorry, I don't know
I'm
the
just
answer.
curious if you do. I mean, where does it? I know we're taking stuff out of it. And we're supposed to go there.
Tim?
Mr. Love?
I believe the question was about the Allport
Yeah,
building
just-
Oh,
as opposed to.
I'm sorry, I'm.
Okay, you're thinking 59 Woodfin.
Okay, so all,
Okay.
yeah, I'm so sorry. So Allport is a site, again, I'm not positive about this, but that site is slated currently for a future affordable housing project as one of the three locations.
Right.
It is not number one priority. The number one priority is Cox Avenue, meaning the first one up on.
Yeah, when the commissioners got that first briefing on the different properties that the county controlled that might be useful for affordable housing, that was on that, Valley Street was on that list. That's right, I'd forgotten about that. Because 35 Woodfin parking lot was on the list, Irwin Hills was on the list, and then, of course, 1552 Cox. My big question is timetable. Once upon a time, I heard an aspiration that ground would be broken on the affordable housing project the first quarter of 2027. And that's actually just right around the corner. I'm just wondering if you, and the reason why we care about that is in order for the affordable housing project to proceed, we've got to relocate our warehouse. And so that's one of the reasons this board is so interested in the warehouse project, is to make sure that we can conduct the 2026 election without any disruption. And that means from the period of, say, July till the end of the year in 2026, we're not moving any place. And so we want eyes wide open on this. No surprises. We got surprised by 35 Woodfin. We're not letting that happen again. We're not going to be surprised by this. And so we're going to ask hard questions about timetables. And I'm asking that hard question right now, because I'm guessing that at this point, considering you've got to do site design, you've got to get a design contract, you've got to do a construction contract, then you've got to do construction, I don't think it's going to get done in a year and a half. And so
That's correct.
I'm just curious what the
That's
current expectation is on timetable.
Oh, there are options there. The option would be renting an interim space and doing a relocation of equipment. The second would be, is to relocate to a permanent location and not go to this facility. Again, these are not inside my authority.
Oh, no.
Right?
No.
So, but those are the options. And
Understood. No, I'm curious as to what the target date is. And I realize it's just ballpark because we're so early in the process, but what the target date would be for being able to use the new storage facility on Riverside Drive.
there's a lot to that equation. Let me
That's why I'm asking the
start by
question.
giving you the target date to finish advanced planning. Our target date is September of this year,
Okay.
all right? If everything's perfect and everybody approves everything in a remarkable fashion, it's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
You got to come up with money. And right now, we're not in a great money condition due to the lien and the impacts, right? We all know this. So we also have to be able to move forward. We have to be able to pay for forward. So that part's not exactly understood at this moment, in my opinion, my personal opinion, only my personal opinion. But if we do move forward, if I'm approved to move forward, then design's about 8 to 9 months
Okay.
to get it ready for bidding, right?
So that's
And then
summer,
if you were
roughly
talking
summer of
about another-
'26.
Right.
So that's roughly summer of '26.
That's gonna put us right in the beginning of election
How
season.
about this?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the timetable's just a little further than
Yeah.
So
we
it's-
originally thought.
So that we won't be opened
Right.
by that projected
No.
first quarter of.
Yeah,
Of course not.
Okay.
Right.
So there'll have to be an alternative solution.
No, but thank you.
to
See, that's,
manage that.
that means we can start thinking about alternatives now. And I appreciate very much learning about these details, because it's going to position this board, and I gotta tell you, we could be looking at a totally new board in another couple of months, because we do this on 2-year cycles, and we don't make the decisions. So we'll see who's sitting at this table in the coming months. But thank you. You have no idea, Mr. Brown, how helpful it is for this board and for our successors to understand the length of time it's going to take to get through this. And now we can work with staff and talk about alternatives and what can we do to make sure 26 goes smoothly, and for that matter, 28. Mr. Cito?
So, parallel planning process. The project, the affordable housing project that is slated to take the place of the existing Cox Avenue warehouse. What's the timeline for that one? Or is there one at this point?
Well, and this is only what's advertised. I don't have any inside information on this. But it's to be able to start the project within the first quarter of '27. And what that typically means is you get all your permits and you start to raise buildings. So the 2 buildings come down, they do all their environmental, and then they start construction. A facility of this nature is probably about 1.5 years to build. I'm not the developer here, I hadn't set the schedule, but my experience with a facility of that size, it's about 1.5 years of construction to 2 years, depending on the difficulty of getting all that you have to have in place.
And I assume this is a generic process, so the same project phases are involved.
Yes, except they've completed their advanced planning, and so
Are they in the
if
schematic
I'm a
plans?
developer in line for this, I've already got my designers doing their job.
Are they
be
in the
ready.
in the schematic phase, or are they in the
That-
design phase?
well, I don't know where they would be, but where I would be, as the developer, is that on the 10th month of '26, I would have a completely designed, ready to build package, priced and ready for permitting. If I was the developer, that's the way they would normally be in place for a '27 start.
Okay. Mr. Love, do you know if there is a requirement that we break ground on that project by a date certain in order to be eligible for outside funding, grants and that sort of thing? I'm wondering what the drivers might be, aside from just a general desire to get the project done.
So, that project, we went before the Board of Commissioners in the past 4 or 5 months.
That was the day we went out there.
Right.
Specifically, the commissioners agreed to move forward with an MOU with a group called Harmony Housing, which specializes in affordable housing development throughout Durham. And so they're going through a process right now, which is to get into a master development agreement, which is a lengthy process. And so I appreciate Robert trying to provide some color commentary on a process that's very gray, right?
Yeah.
The reality is, like, that's the timeline we're shooting for, October, or excuse me, 27.
Yeah, right,
What
right.
I'd add to this, and to Jake's general question, so for those that are not familiar with affordable housing development or have not gone through this before, there's a process called LIHTC, or Low Income Housing Tax Credits.
Mhm.
It's an application process. It helps to buy down the cost of rent as it relates to these projects, and there's an application window. And so to catch that window, we do have some finite deadlines that we bump
Okay.
up against, because they only come annually. We'll know more about the process as we get further. The reality is, we wanted to come and be responsive to the request to tell you where we were
Thank you.
with respect to the collection of 100,000 square feet of storage in a large building. And so that's where we are. And Robert did his best to kind of give you that. There's still, large projects moving forward all at once, so we got to figure out what those timelines are and how they overlap. And so that's where we're at. We'll be back again when we know more. One of the things I really want to stress about where Robert is, his first step is to complete advanced planning. We're not at a point of getting to schematics.
Right.
We have to see what this project costs, determine the feasibility, and then begin to look at environmental and some other issues. So there's a long way for us to go in that advanced planning bucket to determine how we proceed.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm just curious, I know, and I don't know the details of the county's budget, but I know there's budget problems. I mean, is there, would you say there's a better than 50-50 chance that these projected deadlines and completion dates for the project could be pushed back significantly because of budget constraints? Just basically lack of money for the affordable housing and the Riverside Drive
Sure.
project?
The county budget is a large one, and we view it, we're constantly looking at multiple years. And so when we talk about construction projects, we of course have to think about what's right in front of us, the current year budget, FY25, and how we get to the end of the year. And right now we're thinking about FY25 and FY26. Like how do we get through to the end of next year, 12 months from now. The reality when we think about construction projects, these are projects that take place over 5-10 years. The current year funding becomes less important. It's still a factor. I don't want to downplay that. But we're thinking more about, just like you would with your mortgage. You're not, however much your house costs, you didn't pay that in year one. You absorb that over a 30-year period, which allows you to kind of move the projects forward. So I say that to answer your question. I think the project clearly has momentum. There's a need for both storage and affordable housing in our community. I don't want to downplay our current year budget constraints, but also want to acknowledge that we're still going to be here, 300 years from now, hopefully. And so those budgetary views that we look at are longer term, and so we view those differently.
So I guess what you're saying is the immediate budget constraints won't necessarily delay the building of these projects.
I don't approve the budget. I also don't vote. But I can say that I know the commissioners will be thinking about that as they move through, but I think these projects have momentum.
Ms. Brand, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I have a question on, should we get to the point where you're doing advanced planning, and we're talking about input from our staff. But at the point where you start design, how much control does our staff have? Because there are specifics for our process that are very, very different. I mean, on election night, we have, as you said, many cars coming in. We have to get a lot of ballots and so forth in. And how much control are they going to have on the space as far as where things are going to be located so that we're not moving things through other spaces?
So that's the positive about what we're doing. That's why we're going through this advanced planning initiative. Most buildings don't go through this to collectively find all the information on how each department, because it's not just elections, right? We have to, one, make sure all the departments function and that we can coexist.
Well, I understand that. I'm just concerned about this department.
And I appreciate that very much. They have to coexist and function and not interfere with the other operation in this facility. It is a secure facility of which the lion's share, 30% plus, is for elections,
Okay.
of which has to be even a higher level of security. So by saying that, then that means they are kind of in their own functioning area, in their own functioning entry and exits,
Okay.
with the access to parking in close proximity, with access to drop off and pick up at their area. At this point, it's a clean slate.
Okay.
And through design, our hope will be to achieve the functions needed for elections, for the sheriff's department, and for the other 24 groups that have down to a 50 square foot space to 800 square foot space. So, so yes, ma'am, we intend on completely hitting the mark in that respect.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Aceto.
Go ahead.
Just another kind of detail question to follow up on Mary Ann. I would expect that that kind of conversation will happen with our staff during that schematic design place. That when they say to you, hey, 2 nights out of or in the next 2 years, we cannot have any vans and trucks in the parking lot because we're going to have hundreds of cars coming in to bring election, ballots to us. I trust that Buncombe County will understand that and make some arrangements to make sure that can happen. And so that, to me, would be part of what the schematic design would be about. Is, hey, we're good on this, but there will be 2 times, and we need to give you all notice, but please, we're going to be able to have to move some things around in order occasionally for Board of Elections to be bumped up a little bit higher on the priority. But I trust that we can work that out with you guys. But schematic design would be the place to do that, I think.
Both schematic and design development.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And understand that the equation is to operationally be able to accomplish the parking needed for all the departments at any time that they need to be there, and and elections capabilities at their maximum peak time.
Right.
Which in elections is 7:30 post that time, and during training, it can be at any time in which they choose
Absolutely.
to train. So they have to at least be able to have the capacity
Absolutely.
of at least 80 spaces during the training. So I have to have a large enough parking area to accommodate the 80 and 100 plus.
Yeah, because when you were
All
talking about
parking
80
needs.
to 100, including vans and trucks, that won't cut it, right? Because if you've got your vans and trucks and 20 of those spaces, then there's not enough. So that's the kind of thing I'm trying to figure
Well-
out. Where is that discussed?
So on election night, you
Yeah.
use your 100, and that actually allows for some of that parking, and that parking also occurs at the drop-off. So that is, through the information developed, that's where
Right.
those numbers came from at this point. Those will get vetted.
It does mean that those other vans and trucks that don't belong to election
No,
services.
They will have, that is not included in that.
Oh, I misunderstood that when I looked at it. I thought it said
That
including.
That is just dedicated in the amount of parking.
For election
that
services.
is fine.
Okay.
Probably in total spaces, you've probably got a 200 space parking area.
Okay, those are the kind of the examples. So as long as
Yeah.
we've got a process in place where all that's discussed, then we're good.
And yes, ma'am, and that is during, and as a matter of fact, it begins in advanced planning, because we will have the initial building layout and the initial site layout. And then that will tell us, ooh, we don't have enough land area for all this. What do we change? What has to reduce? What has to change relative to the use of this building? Where do we have to change on the site to make this work, to accommodate?
But I also have to have some trust and faith that the county will, if for some reason there's not enough space, that the county will also understand that 2 times every, in 2 years' time, we're going to need extra, that the county would make some accommodations to move other vehicles. That's an example, but that there would be some willingness to work within the actual operations of a building this size.
Yeah,
when we have so many different.
We actually get good, really strong recognition of the election function. You might recall that on election night out here, I mean, we have people directing traffic out there.
Yeah,
Because,
that's
and,
really
and,
what I'm saying.
and that, I think that the county does a really good job in terms of,
Yeah.
understanding major events and making sure that things are properly staffed and, areas cleared, that sort.
That's all.
I really admire your optimism, because you're saying 2 nights, which means you're not assuming any second primary. I love that.
Or recounts, or,
But
Well,
I
they're not as
also,
large anyway.
but I think Sally's concern might be coming out of our 35 Woodfin experience. So
Yeah.
I think there's also reason to, request reassurance.
Well, and I really appreciate members of this board helping folks who are going to be working on this project understand what we're looking at, what we're concerned about, what is really
Sure.
important to us as we look at actually implementing operation in a new space. So, no, I appreciate it. Mr. Aceto.
Thank you. Following on Mary Ann and Sally, I'm sorry I don't have the right project manager words to express this, but I'm thinking about the critical path of what takes place and how the project gets bid in terms of how the contractor is going to mobilize, how they're going to store things, how they're going to stage things. And that, how is that, is there some specific expression of what it means to election services in terms of a critical path and hard stop deadlines? That there will come a point where, with that, we would want to know that the construction process and the bidding have all taken into account what we're going to need at certain dates and certain times that we, as election services, cannot adjust for. We have to know that we will be in a particular place, we will have a particular space, and that
Have
there
our
will,
stuff.
there won't be any encroachment on that, and that the process, the construction process that the county is engaging in, and I'm thinking about the bidding and what's going to be in the specs, will take into account what our access needs are and what that's going to look like in that space between the commencement of the project, the moving of election services from their existing warehouse space, and coordinating all that. I see that you're designing a beautiful building that's going to be very useful and takes into account the future. I think that's thrilling. It's wonderful. I am thinking about that transition space between what we have now and the construction of what is going in and vacating what we have now. And that there will be some very specific provision made for that, and that staff will have very specific input and won't be having to just suddenly catch up with it. Oh, by the way, you're not ready for us to occupy the space you want us out. We have an election. Would like to see how that is being specifically addressed, and the special needs of election services. So we're not passing things through our space that eventually is going to be high security, but in the meantime is being compromised by the construction process or the process of vacating the existing space. Is that clear as mud?
It's actually crystal clear. And it's 2 different timelines, and it's 2 different deliveries. The first delivery is hinged on whether the affordable housing project occurs in the first quarter of 27. If it does, then we have to come up with a solution
Right.
which allows the equipment to be moved prior to the time in which it has to be utilized. It has to be in a position that it can actually be utilized.
Yes.
Yes.
Equal to at least what they are doing now at Cox Avenue, right?
yes.
And relative to the timeline on the storage facility, and I don't mean this to sound blasé, it really doesn't matter. What matters is when we move them into that facility. So as long as they have a place to reside and they have Allport to reside, when I finish the building, finishes as soon as I can get it finished on a schedule, right? But that doesn't mean just because the building is open and just because I've got people moved in, that doesn't mean that's when elections can move in. That schedule has to be coordinated relative to operation. Fortunately, we've been given a long-term schedule, as well as you can, by elections, kind of our on year, off year, to try to actually make these things work so that it hits then. But if it doesn't, the facility will be there and the move will have to happen when it can.
Pass
So-
it down to Steve.
The one in which is way more specific to
Oh.
time is actually if the affordable housing project moves forward as planned. That's the one in which becomes a critical path.
Right, and who would be the representative from the county to be in the loop for this? It's not you, because you're not going to be doing that. So identifying who that would be and how they can communicate with us would be a really good thing.
So I always think of it in these terms. The management of this county make those decisions under the advisement of their board. So when those decisions are made, they'll express that, and I anticipate that will come to this board as well, because it has a direct impact on elections. I'm at the ready if they tell me as a project manager, we want to look at this building, we want you to make it ready, we need a quick fit function on this, then that becomes a priority, and that's what we do. And then we get diving into what you would normally do for the other building. The thing is the information that you've developed already can translate to any place on earth. That's the cool thing about it is we have this information developed by elections conveyed to us on paper. It tells us operationally their stuff. We have graphics of how they functionally work, right? That can translate to any place as long as there's enough area, whether it is temporary or permanent. Now, that decision, however, of Robert Gove is not my decision.
Yeah.
And that's when you're talking about county managements.
Okay, so
We
I'm gonna
know.
quit preaching and go to meddling. And say that, how confident are you, what extent do you feel that I'm hearing that you have a set of specifications for space utilization by Board of Elections that you're confident in, that you feel it's complete and it's workable, and like you say, it's portable, you could move it all over the planet if you needed to. So how confident are you that within that space that there's an understanding of what's a hard stop in terms of time and space utilization that must remain in place during the transition time, not just with respect to the completed project, but between the time of completion and the time that election services is asked to move or shrink for a while temporarily or whatever. I mean, how confident are you that you've got that transition space properly prioritized so that this election services is their function is not compromised temporarily or otherwise?
When you
Yes.
speak about county management, guess what happens?
Well, that's a really good
Always
sign.
watching.
That means that somebody heard my question. Thank you very much. Carry on.
What I wanted to do, I wanted to see if there's any other questions. I do want to address your question, Mr. Siga. What we asked Robert to do today as an architect
Sure.
is come before you to provide an update on advanced planning, which he's done. It's hot off the presses. We got our last input from the elections group, last week. So I think that's what we're giving you. We're giving you a peek. In terms of hypotheticals into timelines and sharing space and parking lots, I will say I appreciate the concerns. It's heard, copy. But I don't think that we're gonna resolve anything today by hypothesizing about that. And so I just wanna be clear, I don't think that's fair to Robert to really ask. And so I'm glad for you to ask me that question and me say, candidly, we don't know. That's too far in advance.
I have one other just detail, and I agree totally with you. And we did this before with Robert, and so, you know, again, sorry that if we're getting into an area that's really not yours to be concerned about, Robert. But the detail is, I really liked hearing you say 30% of that building is going to be is kind of identified as need for this election services. When you were looking at the numbers, my little number brain went to 31,467 square feet that you had in the new building for us out of 90,000, which is about 30%. So I'd like to just hold that one big out there as the planning continues. And if for some reason that needs to change, I would like to hear why that percentage changed for election services.
Well, I think that's great. I'd like to chime in here. So what Robert said multiple times throughout, and I want to make sure that we're all hearing it because it is important. This is advanced planning. It's the very earliest stage of this project. We've collected a lot of data, and that's given us this number. With any construction project, we're going to see that project change. It's going to be based on schedule, budget, all of those things. And so I want to make sure that y'all hear that.
Yep.
There isn't an infinite budget on this project. And Mr. Schultz, I know you asked about budgetary scenarios. So I don't want you to stick with 30%.
I just want to know when it changes. I'm not
I think we're glad
saying
to do
we're that it's wrong or bad. I just want to know that it's changed and why.
I think we're glad to provide updates on some regular basis. What I want to be clear about is that we're not getting tied to a specific square footage number or a percentage of a building, because that will change. It's guaranteed.
Sure.
I just had a very general question. You don't need to take a lot of time to go through all this. Two general questions. Number one, I've just been out there one time for a training session, so I just have kind of a vague idea where it is. But, I mean, the Cox Avenue is kind of downtown. It's a fairly secure space, but I assume that once you get all this equipment out there, there's going to be just general security around the building.
He talked about that.
The sheriff's department is going to be out there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you may have already addressed that in the, but I mean, more than just locked, badge entrance and that sort of thing. What kind of security do you envision out there?
Okay, so actually currently, the site right now has it's gated, currently. The building itself, right, it will have a badged entry. You will have to go through a menagerie of cameras. This facility will be cameraed on the outside and at all entry points. And also at the delivery points, it will have a receiving and a receiving department, basically, where trucks, I can't just drive up. You will have to schedule to delivery. Even as a department, you will have to schedule in the overall use of the building. Elections, the intent, and this all has to play out with the design and what we're able to do with regard to the site and cost and everything. Tim just communicated way more clear than I do, is that our intent is to try to privatize those points of access for elections so that they don't have to intermingle with the rest of the building operations. All right, and so that on said day, they have their space in and out. They have their space secure from the rest of the building as well. So, like I said, if I have approval to come and deliver a truck full of stuff, and I'm in the facility to go put things in my caged area, because my area will be caged, theirs will be walled off with security walls and security doors and security double access locks, and each one of those doors will be cameraed.
Will you actually have personnel out there?
Yes.
There's going to be a contingency of the sheriff's department, is that right out there?
That is correct too.
Okay.
Yes. I doubt very seriously that they will be there in the wee hours of the morning
Right.
like they are currently. But yes, on a weekly basis, it is planned so far in the advanced planning part.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer until we actually arrive at the approvals and the schematic design and so forth.
And then
But right now, you do.
the second question I have is just a very general question. I assume during all this process, you interact with the Board of Commissioners and kind of, I'm just curious, you go to the meetings and tell them what's going on. I assume if you have a cost overrun, you have to take it back to them, and
That's
is that
correct.
how that works,
The
Tim?
commissioners approved the initial contract. As Robert said earlier in the presentation, they'll have the ability to do the same. We owe them an update on where we are on the overall project as well as the cost, and so that'll be something that we'll be bringing to them soon.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. We just lost Jake, but thank you.
Yes. I wanted to make a few comments and clarifications also. And one is really broad, but I just wanted to make sure that it's still my belief that a centralized, combined facility is what is best for our department, that is independent from everything. That's been communicated to you all, it's in my business plan, it's in my Achieve Together goals and for communication with management. That's how it has been since I started. The previous director also had that same goal. So that's still something that I believe. Of course, there are constraints. Second is the advanced planning part before September 2025 works really well with our schedule. We have the small municipal election in November. So making sure that we have all of that before then. And we've done communication with Robert, General Services, and management on here's the election schedule. Try to put it in as concrete terms as possible so that those two schedules could get overlaid over each other, and that General Services knows what we're doing too. So that has happened. The schematic design, we really need to be engaged in that. And, 2026 is going to be really busy for us. So that's something that we need to we need to overcome that challenge.
How do you see that? Do you have a thought about it?
I don't have a lot of thought on that, but you saw that a lot of those meetings for 35 Woodfin
Right.
and this were in 2024.
Exactly.
Yes, and
Maybe hadn't
we were busy. So we need to make sure that it's realistic and that the data is correct. Jake mentioned earlier about the warehouse versus storage talk. And it might seem silly, but I do think that it is relevant, because when people think storage, there's a whole different thought process that goes on about how a building flows. And that's why he's pushing that point of warehouse. That's why we call it a warehouse. There are people there, there's moving parts. We change how an area is used over time. And so that's why that Jake was saying that. And I agree. I think that the words we use do matter. It's not a storage facility for elections. We did, as Robert mentioned, our last meeting was great for communication, and that's what this is all about. We need to keep communicating. We put together, a notes document was presented along with a spreadsheet from CPL that we were attempting to vet. We've done a lot of work on both of those since then. They're not complete. And so, but we reorganized the notes so that we had it kind of in different, in the spatial categories, so training, the kind of warehouse, operations center, the different functions. And I think that helped communications there. We're updating the spreadsheet. We've done one pass, it needs another pass. And then we have also created, and I just have to show you because this was so similar to our Helene map, but we re-updated these diagrams of our current facilities. So we have all both Allport and the 50 Cox, with all of our current things, they're all numbered. And then those numbers we're translating those numbers to the spreadsheet so that there is no confusion about what we're talking about. Because we ran into that when we had our last meeting, where there was a line item and we were like, well, if it's this, then it's that. And we can't have that. We have to have crystal clear clarity on what we're talking about. So that's what we are working on to complete that. And those are all the comments that I collected along the presentation.
I have a question. I don't know who to address it.
Jake Quinn handed me a note that said I'm gone, you're the presiding officer.
Yeah, he's-
now, so this is my one chance to be a presiding officer during my time on the Board of Elections. What's the question, Kathy?
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I think this is not just for you, but for also the Buncombe County officers that are here, and you're mentioning Helene. What happens if during all this wonderful planning, Helene happens? We have major power outages, but more importantly, financial issues occur. Federal monies are withheld. I know you can't know that that's gonna happen, but how are you
Planning.
realizing that some plan for that sort of event needs to be considered? And I don't know who can answer that question, or how to address that in your planning.
So contingency planning is extremely important to us, and not just Buncombe County. It's an elections theme. Things change all the time. There's law changes that happen frequently, so it's something that we deal with a lot. The scale of Helene, of course, was not something that we expected, but we put in a lot of effort into planning for all hazards planning is what we call it. And with this move, we would start considering that. I would expect we would have a lot more backup location thoughts in this case. It is really difficult for us.
Yeah.
We are huge. We are really big.
Our fleet of foot.
Yes, so there's not just another facility that is available, and especially in an emergency, there's a lot of competition for facilities. There are, other counties do have access to a lot of large facilities, but Buncombe County is just not one of those. We don't have, we don't like strip malls, so we don't have strip malls. We don't have a lot of large industry and things like that. So that is a challenge, and that's something that we will have to look for. During Helene, Buncombe County supported us. Behind the life safety needs, elections was the next priority. So at least from our experience, I think that we would feel that again.
Kathy, I think
But it's-
you understand why we're asking some of the questions that we're asking. Because obviously every department in this county has, claim to space, claim to services. But most of them aren't functioning by a timetable that is not flexible at all. And so we have to ask the questions because we have no choice but to follow the law. And that's part of the issue that we face and reason we're asking the questions that we're asking.
Mr. Schultz. This gets back to a philosophical conversation that we having. There really no lights have come on for us as a board.
Did you turn it off? Yeah.
That lights have come on for us for a board as a philosophical conversation that we have to be and appear to be independent of our elected officials because we manage their election. And the electorate, the voters, have to be and appear to be convinced that we are, in fact, independent in order to be fair. At the same time, we count on the commissioners and the county to provide that infrastructure support that we need to operate. And it's hard to reconcile those two things. And that's one reason we get horsey and ask the questions that we do. We must be, as well as appear to be, independent. At the same time, we rely on the county, and they have come through. So, so we don't, that's not a deficiency, but we have to get our thinking as a board. That's our leadership issue, is that we always have to consider everybody in the county, regardless of their party affiliation, regardless of their their race or gender, all the things that we're accountable for under the statute, to be fair and impartial, and mainly and not be beholden to the commissioners, but at the same time be cooperating and not be unreasonable in our demands. So that's a pretty narrow board to walk. But we hope we can accomplish that. And part of this is contingency planning, and to make it very and the language that Jake talked about. Yeah. That's important. That's a way that we remind the commissioners of how we're different, so that our voters understand that we respect the need to be independent and impartial. And I think the commissioners understand this. I mean, that's not rocket science. It's just the law. So anyway, we do appreciate your support and your willingness to come and share with us. And you understand why we might not talk like the other departments, because we ain't. So thanks.
Are there any other questions from the audience? Any other comments from the county officials? Anybody else on the board?
Next meeting.
Yeah, I'm getting to that part. Okay. The next meeting date.
Sometime in May.
Yeah, do y'all want to throw out some dates? I've just got 3 dates when I'm not out of town, but it's towards the end of the month.
Yeah, I won't be available from the 22nd through the 27th, probably.
Do we have any deadlines for anything that we're going to need to discuss at the next meeting?
I don't believe so. I mean, there will be likely some news about 382 and Griffin, and we will make sure that we get that to you between meetings.
And as the law stands now, when will the appointments be made by the auditor?
The appointments for the county boards.
Yeah, what about that? Yeah. June 25th.
25th.
Yeah, so it'll be June 25th, according to what is valid currently.
Yeah, have you got any?
Because the law is
dates?
valid currently unless something
Until-
changes.
Any
Until-
Tuesdays?
Tomorrow?
May 1st.
Yeah, so we might hear tomorrow.
We might hear tomorrow.
Okay.
I think
So there shouldn't be
13th
anything
is better for me
then for
than
May that,
Okay.
I mean, we've got some flexibility about when we meet.
I think so.
Throw the 13th out there.
Yeah, let's throw it out there.
Is May 13th?
13th or 27th, I think.
27th is,
13th
Well.
or 20th, take your pick.
Either one.
20th
20th is
is-
a little, gives us a little more time.
I'm
to-
sorry, I forgot my phone, but I think 20th might be a problem for me.
I'm not
Okay.
here on the 20th.
Okay.
Okay, 13th then.
May 13th? May 13th at 3:30? Is that good as far as we know? Okay. Then the next meeting will be May 13th at 3:30 PM. And with that, we'll
And it'll still be here, even though we're moving. Right.
still be in this room. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks for clarifying that. Okay, with that, the meeting's concluded. Thanks for